Hi, this is Jane Hatch. I'm a host of this program and I haven't been on in a while. I apologize. I've been traveling and leaving half my equipment in Santa Fe, the other half in Cape Cod. But anyway, I'm back and I wanted to reconnect with a couple of people that I had talked to months ago about doing this. And that's one is John Whitberg, who's become kind of a famous personality in the Secret Space program.
You're
And
making me blush
this
over here.
we want to see you blushing. Where are you? We have a an avatar. Well, not quite an avatar of John, but do you want to explain who the character is that we're seeing instead of your face?
This is an alter of mine, who is the one that I have written all of my so far published books about. There are volume 4 of 6 drops in a couple of weeks.
Wow.
Hopefully. Yeah, hopefully. And then
What
finally maybe when I'm writing about whoever the next alter is, maybe I'll make him the next avatar picture. But
and do you
um
want to
I I have this up. I don't have my camera on today because I couldn't figure out how to do the virtual background, and I really don't like the background that is my house at all, and I probably will have to get up and move around some, so
Yeah, I
yeah.
understand, and I understand your situation. Sometimes you have to sort of leave and you disappear anyway. So we'll have this guy with us the whole time. And what's
Yeah.
his name?
Kyle Delshow.
And what was his primary role as your alter? I know, but could you tell the audience?
Uh he was a synthetic, which is not an android, nor is it a cyborg, nor is it a replicant. Those are all different categories. He was a synthetic who was his job was he started off essentially guarding groups of children going on operations, and then moved on to becoming half of the head of a unit for who was a mercenary unit for all intents and purposes. Who I guess I can get into a teaser of a little bit of what starts happening in Volume 4 is, among other things, they carried out, dark operations for various elite members of various families off-world, and they also owned a bar known as the Glass Hub, where they took street prostitutes from around Mars. And yes, Mars has streets, and those streets do have prostitutes.
In bars.
Yeah, and took them and had them train them to be ba essentially Black Widows, um, or honeypots
Hmm.
for the various people visiting this bar to gain information and carry out assassinations, etc.
Oh, and
That's what.
that's going to be the new book. That piece is going to be in the new book, Mars being on
Yeah,
Mars.
yeah,
Cool.
Volume 4, and then in Volume 5 get even more into that, and then things change up quite a bit in Volume 6, and I'm not going to spoil it. And
All right.
Volume 6 is the finality of
Oh.
that Alters saga. Yeah.
So, we'll put below where people can contact you or where people can get the book. And I understand you don't get a profit for them. It's free, and
No.
we'll give the information below. Um, I
Yes,
know.
and also there's my channel, and you can there are audiobook versions of it on my channel as well.
Okay, yeah, I think that's one way that I listened to it. One was a woman, I think one was a man that I listened to. But anyway, they both came out pretty well. So, in case you are new to my channel or you're not familiar with what John might be talking about, I just want to give a really brief overview. And John, correct me if I'm wrong. A lot of the like the soldiers that he's talking about, like Kyle here, is an alter, meaning a part of John that was split off from him. And that's the case with many, many super soldiers, assassins, sex workers that are used for blackmail and honeypot. And this, the origin of this is always, almost always MKUltra, which was a device or a science, so-called science that was I think it goes back as far as Egypt, but they developed it more in the concentration camps, and then CIA took over and they developed it even further. And we're going to really get into that. John's going to explain it. But he was the son of two CIA parents, I guess we'll call them, but they turned him over to the CIA Montauk project. And I'll never forget you talking about being dropped off. I think you were like 5 or 6 at the border of New Mexico or Arizona. I mean, your parents brought you there. You weren't even abducted, which is the case with a lot of elite, CIA royal politicians. They actually donate or, put their own kids in these programs. And so you were picked up by the U.S. Navy in a van. And the most horrific ride I ever heard of was after the Navy had picked up several children, kidnapped, some of them kidnapped, some turned over. You were all driven to Montauk with no stops, bathroom breaks, no food, and brought all the way to Montauk, Long Island, New York, to begin the horrific mind control so-called experimentations. And that was where, and the so-called the chair was there, the Roswell chair, the time travel chair, which is the focus of a lot of the MKUltra. And John was used in the chair for time travel, portals,
I,
opening
I, I was,
portals.
I was not used in the chair.
Oh,
Um, and to be clear, this person who in the 50s was taken to Camp Hero was actually an alter. I have determined, I had
okay.
thought for a while he was my original. I've determined he is not, that he is, an alter. And part of what I wanted to talk about today actually is the new methods of the
Okay.
MK Ultra. But anyway, just to the one correction I would make to that.
Yeah, well, that's
Uh,
that's
n
a big one. And I just wanted to say that these altars that we see here, like call, are created often through torture and MK Ultra. So, and John is part of the secret space program, a time travel, or do you want to add anything to that, John, before you go on to really tell us about the nitty gritty of MK Ultra to your bio? I haven't done a very good
um,
job.
you've done a pretty decent job. I guess the basic origin of my story. Um, for the origin of that story, we need to go all the way back to the 1830s, approximately. Certain Prussian elite were. It was very fashionable at the time to do what were known as seances, or at least they wrote about them as seances. That was a psyop that they were calling them seances. They were not, for the most part, in contact with spirits or gods or whatever. They were in contact with ETs, and they knew it. And so they created this whole spiritualist movement, theosophy, deception, thing, which, not that there's nothing legitimate in theosophy, there definitely is, but, uh, and they created this whole deception in order that they were in contact with ETs, and these ETs were showing them ways off planet via stargates and such. Now, they didn't have the technology really to know what was going on, or to be able to go off planet and live there, so it took a while. But starting in the 1920s, a young woman known as Maria Orsic, a Serbian German priestess of some pagan order or another called the Vril Society, which there is very little official record of this thing, but there is enough that we do know it existed, and we do know that Maria existed. They were in contact with an ET species from Aldebaran, who were giving them ingredients and or who were showing them the way to ingredients, etc., to build actual spaceships. And so they were going out and colonizing off-world, slowly but surely, starting in the 1920s. And in the 1930s, a certain someone rose to power in Germany and nationalized the industry that these ladies were doing and made it essentially the secret goal of uh, the intelligence community in Germany at the time to get off planet. And that's what everything that happened in Germany was about. That's what the war was about, really, was, everything else was window dressing to getting off planet. And they
Wait a sec.
succeeded.
So you just said
What?
the whole war was about what? Can you repeat that?
Getting off planet.
Really?
Yeah.
I believe it.
And they also were in concert with the Japanese, who were developing cybernetic technology at the time. And these two, people don't realize these two are inextricably linked. Completely inextricably linked, the Germans and Japanese off-world. There's a lot of compartmentalization and segregation that happens in the programs, so if you work for one, you probably don't see very much of the other, so a lot of people don't realize that um, how inextricably linked they are. I've worked as a go-between between them many times, so I'm more aware of this. And so they started losing the war in about 1943, with when during the Russian winter when the Soviet Union retaliated and began pushing them back,
The Germans.
to pushing the Germans back. Yeah.
Can you speak up just a little? Because this is really important.
Yes, and
Okay.
so
Thank you.
during during this whole Russian winter thing, um, the Germans got in contact with a new to them alien species known as we would call them draconians, and even though there are actually seven draconian species, they got in contact with the seven species who live on Alpha Draconis. And these guys shifted a few things. They told the Germans, your racial ideology is ridiculous, but if you get rid of that and you agree to work with almost anyone, you can come off world and we'll help you start setting up your colonies because you're losing this war, basically. And so the Germans agreed to that, and they started taking people off world, mostly at the time it was mostly adults from their elite because they didn't know there were things they didn't know. Um,
Yeah.
and so in 19 they kept doing this throughout up to the end of the war and after. In 1947, Admiral Richard Byrd of the U.S. Navy heard about that there were Germans at a base in Antarctica who had survived the war and were still Nazis, essentially. And he, not knowing that these were part of this breakaway civilization that was developing, and so he chased them down there, and to put it a bit crudely, they got their asses handed to them. Um,
The Americans did.
yes,
Okay.
the Americans did. They had no idea what they were getting into, and
Hmm.
they were defeated within minutes of arrival.
Yikes.
Because these Germans and Japanese down at the South Pole had, you know, laser technology. They had ships that could fly pole to pole in seconds. Admiral Byrd specifically described that. They had, you know, plasma machine guns, etc., that could, tear through a ship. One man holding a plasma machine gun could rip apart a a ship.
Where
Um,
did the Nazis
an,
get that tech? Sorry, here I am interrupting. Where did the Nazis get that technology that they were using at Antarctica against the Americans?
from various ETs,
Okay, so it came from, yeah.
various, and also from intraterrestrials as well, inner Earth civilizations who they were in contact with.
Okay.
And so this started kind of this ended World War II with an Axis victory. That's right, guys. We did not win the war. Um, but the Germans weren't too concerned with what we thought, and so they just kind of left Antarctica and left the planet. After that, it was kind of not too big of a deal. It was something of a blip on their radar. Excuse me, sorry.
Hmm.
And they, but what they were having trouble with was, first of all, they didn't have very many people, who they had taken off with them. And for another thing, when they got past outside the realm of the moon, etc., um, women stopped having their periods because the moon actually controls women's menstrual cycles. It's locked into the moon. And so they were unable to reproduce. And this was a problem, but then they were finding that prepubescent girls who were coming of age on uh, off planet were developing normally. And so what they needed was a lot more prepubescent girls in particular. But they were interested pretty much in anyone just to build out their civilization. And also their military because they were getting trounced almost everywhere they went.
The
And
Germans in
so,
space.
yes.
Okay.
And so starting in 1952, they started coming down to Earth and buzzing places, including the White House and the Kremlin as well, and probably, all over the world. They were coming down in their little flying saucer looking craft, which were called Hanabu, and buzzing different places to get the attention of world leaders and making deals with them. The deal that they made in 1953 was that they wanted it with the American government. I don't know the exact treaties that they made with other countries or when. I do know that they have made them with many other countries because I know people all over the world who have been in this. I know people in all over the Anglosphere and also France, Italy, Taiwan, Japan, Argentina, Brazil, etc., etc. And as the deal they made with the Americans was 150,000 German American or Japanese or Japanese American children every year, uh, in exchange for them kind of leaving the Americans alone. In 2007, I was one of those children. But first, I had to be taken, and by the way, this is entirely American doing. I want it to be very clear. This is not German doing to program the children before sending them off world. That was entirely an American idea because they want a lot of these children to be Manchurian candidates against these Germans. And the Germans are kinda not able to stop them from doing that. So in 2007, when I was picked up,
Hmm.
I was living in Colorado Springs, Colorado, which is in the same town as Cheyenne Mountain Air Force Base, and I was taken there. And I was programmed using the new methods they weren't super new. They had started in the mid 90s, but they were still relatively new for Generation 10 super soldier, spy, Manchurian candidates, whatever you want to call us. And so that brings us at last to the main topic today.
Yes. You've given us somewhat of a history of MK Ultra woven into the story of World War, but could you start over again with just MK Ultra, the origin and going through to where it is now, or is that too much to cover?
No, we can do that. MKUltra started most likely in Mesopotamia, even before Egypt, with the Anunnaki, uh, or lessons learned from the Anunnaki. And what are the Anunnaki? They ain't reptilians, guys. I'm sorry. The Anunnaki are what we would refer to as tall whites, or what the government refers to in documentation as tall whites. They are anywhere from 8 to 12 feet tall, very wraith-like, very pale, with silvery white hair usually, and their eyes are usually either a pale blue or pink. Um, and their skin is so clear, is so white that it's almost like translucent. They have extreme issues with hemoglobin. Um, they have to drink like they have to eat raw meat and drink animal blood to stay alive. That's how bad their hemoglobin is.
They're vampires.
Yes, they are. Uh, and these guys, what the elite Anunnaki do to their own children is they torture them through ritual and sexual means to split their minds off to become alters. And what is an alter? An alter is a split personality. Dissociative identity disorder is, as it is known in the DSM, is a person with alters. And these Anunnaki taught it to the Cheyennes, who were the first, basically, truly civilized society on the planet. And it's continued from there.
Huh.
And
What
yeah,
year are we talking about Mesopotamia, the
uh,
origin?
about 12,000 BC, so about
Okay.
14,000 years ago.
On Earth.
Yes.
In what area of Earth?
It's now known as Iraq.
Okay. No wonder there's so much activity there. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, that, and I
Yeah.
can get into that in a little bit.
Yeah, that's
But
another whole video, isn't it? The Middle
yeah, but
East.
yeah, but there is some interesting stuff in that area that
Oh
I've
yeah.
seen
Yeah.
personally. Um, but
Okay.
so and then it continued up until basically until we had real technology again. And so starting in probably the 1930s, we began having things like, we began having screens that we could project things onto and, music players and all of that sort of thing. And headphones, I think, were first developed in the 1930s, so it was possible to like strap some headphones to someone's head and play something in their ears over and over again. These are things common in the more modern MKUltra narrative that were developed
Yeah.
starting in the 1930s and continuing up until the 1950s, when development sort of stagnated for a while up until the 1980s. And now, what happened in the 1980s? To understand what happened in the 1980s, we have to go back yet again to more of the Japanese side of things. Starting in in the 1930s, well, no, starting in the 1870s actually, but then this a lot of this stuff is not linear in time.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
time travel is always involved, so there's always the caveat that like you can't always tell when something was actually developing in real time and when it was sent back in time, you know. it's that stuff is difficult to determine. But anyway, so going back to the 1870s, Japan started getting involved in this whole thing I mentioned earlier with stargates, etc. And then in the 1930s and 40s, they began developing these cybernetic technologies. And there's a lot about this in my book. People should read that if they want, the full scoop on that. I'm not going to get into it too much, but there was a family, a military family called Arasaka, who have since been completely wiped from the records, who were heavily involved in this newfound cybernetics trade. And after the war, they, of course, went off planet along with the Germans and the rest of the Japanese who went off planet. And the Arasaka company began, what you looking at?
I was just gonna try to get some visuals with what you were talking about, the Japanese.
Okay, okay.
What was that?
Arasaka Robotics. The logo, they have been actually soft disclosed, as we call it, in a video game. The logo that they show for that video game is not their real logo. I have their real logo. I can send it to you on Messenger, and you can
Okay,
pull it
or
up.
Anasaki Robotics.
Oh, no, Arasaka, Arasaka.
Okay. Yeah, I was just gonna try to add some visuals to what you were saying.
Yeah. Um, and so yeah, that's not their real logo. Although
Int-
the font on the name is correct. That is the one that they use, that the real life off-world company uses. And so Arasaka Robotics develops in the 1980s a technology known as the Soul Byte.
the Soul Light. Okay.
Soul Byte, Byte.
Okay.
And what is this Soul Byte? This Soul Byte, the best disclosure of it is in a TV show called Altered Carbon.
Oh, you
Uh,
talk about that a lot.
yes, I talk about that a lot. It is and in the show they call it a cortical stack, by the way. And once again, the visual is off. They always change something in soft
Yeah,
disclosure. But look, Altered Carbon, by the way, is the most I have not seen the second season. The second season, for various reasons, is dead to me. It does not exist. The first season of Altered Carbon uh, is very much based on the Alter Kyle, whom you see before you.
really
And
interesting.
yes, extremely so. Um, and it is, I would say it is the most accurate piece of soft disclosure that has ever been made. Ever.
Wow.
I
You can
put,
keep
I put,
talking. I gotta plug in
yeah,
my computer.
okay. I put it ahead of a lot of the things people talk about. People always talk about Star Trek. Star Trek is fluffy. It's the image we would like. Star Trek is not accurate. Um, there are a couple of other shows that I would say are accurate, such as like Halo, um, Babylon 5 to a degree. And there's a couple of movies that have some value. I don't put much value into movies because I think you need a minimum of 6 hours to actually show anything. That's a personal opinion of mine. But anyway,
Yeah, and Hollywood usually turns it into some kind of propaganda to
yeah,
mind control.
or they make it nice and light and fluffy.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
where are we in the history of MK Ultra? Where
Well, we're in the
with the
1980s with
all right.
the development of the Soul Byte.
Okay. Okay.
And the Soul Byte what it is, it's there's a picture of a stack, by the way, that go back up a little. Uh, that blue thing on the far left. Yeah, that's
Not
what
here.
they look like. That's what they look like in the show. That's not what they actually look like. What they actually look like is a little white cylinder, about a quarter of an inch in diameter and about 2.5 inches long. And by the way, there have been images of these in people who have been abducted, X-ray images.
Hmm.
And these people thought they were alien implants. They're not. They are from that. If you have one of those, that means you are an SSP asset.
And
So
what does it really look like? The altered the soul bite?
it looks about uh it's a white cylinder about a quarter of an inch in diameter, 2 or 2.5 inches long.
Okay.
And it's
Eh,
filled with various crystals and copper wire and such. And what it does is it copies the consciousness
oh my gosh.
and is continuously copying it, backing it up, and uploading it to a cloud storage vault,
Oh,
which is on a secret satellite well outside the solar system that we don't really even know the location of, which is part of what is called the Arasaka net. And what this what this implant does, not only does it copy the consciousness, it also digitizes it and makes it splittable without trauma and torture, etc. And this began being developed in the 1980s, but it really took off in about 2000. And it was in full swing, perfect completely in 2007. So that now pretty much all super soldiers of my generation and past it, and yes, they are still taking people, children for this. There are still vanishing pregnancies happening, etc. And what's happening in this scenario is they're not so much torturing the children.
mm-hmm.
They are using other methods. And by the way, I am the only person of who is speaking about this right now because I am the
About
only person
the soul
about
bites?
these and about the new methods in
Okay.
general. All right.
So go ahead.
And so let me explain to you how the human mind has they've discovered the human mind has worked. They've discovered that the maximum amount or the amount of alters that pretty much anyone can be split into safely is 2197. A 13 by 13 by 13 cubic data array.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna have a sip of water. Ask me a question while I do that.
Um, I think Stuart Swerdlow spoke about that too, the 13 cubes.
Yes.
Uh, and that's the only time I've ever heard it. Where did you learn about it?
Well, probably from his work, or someone else referenced his work to me. Um, and and so what began? Wow, did you know? A whole lot of people are asking, did you know?
Really? I don't know
Yeah.
why that came up. I looked up DID and I got that. Did you know?
Um, that's DYK, idiot.
And I know you're not talking to me.
No, 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 I'm talking to Google.
Yeah, I know. That is so weird. Okay. I'm gonna try again.
Yeah. Um, so going back to going back to this soul bite, what they do at the start in the new programming methods is they download into it 2,197 save files, as they call them, which are what will store the altar. These are, basically files that can be voice activated, like when you talk to your Siri on your phone or whatever else. It's an extremely advanced version of that, except it's more like having 2,197 series who each have different personalities. Okay, and so now the methods of actually splitting the mind, which were done to me and which were done to the other children in this batch that were brought to Cheyenne Mountain Base in 2007, and which were done presumably to all other children all over the world who were part of that year's batch, um, of people to be turned over off-world, okay?
Mm-hmm.
It started with a a replacement of the blood. Our blood, we were brought in, I was portaled out of my room, and this is the first memory I ever had that was programs related. I had it the morning after I woke up from it. I'm one of the few people who has never once had the luxury of not having these memories. I have always had my memories. I just didn't know what they were until 2019. Um, and I still get them continuously. I get, there are days when I am getting like 7 hours worth of memory, and it's just playing in my head constantly, and I cannot turn it off.
Oh.
A frustrating thing about this is that, like, usually in my memory is purely visual 99% of the time. It's usually just either images or it's like a silent film playing. But the visuals are extremely strong, and I'm able to even like read signs on the walls and so on, which explains how I've been able to know, locations and such. Very occasionally, when there even is any, oh, there's still one with Veronica Bartolini up. I didn't know that. God.
Oh yeah, I heard
Uh,
that that wasn't the greatest. This is just some of John's interview. What do you have, hundreds out there?
not
Giant
hundreds. Not hundreds.
dozens.
Probably about 70.
Yeah.
Uh,
Is this yeah. I was
don't. I won't talk about that on air. When we
no
turn
no,
off,
let's I was
when we
just
go
trying to
off,
find your channel so I could show people your channel. I know
look up my handle, which is at the John Whitberg, all lowercase.
okay.
At the John Whitberg, not just
Oh,
my name.
all
I
right. And
think.
I
Yeah, that's it. Do you hear the
okay.
people sing up at the top?
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah. Okay, here is John's
Yeah,
website.
that's my
I mean
podcast.
YouTube.
I have an epic show brewing with a rather epic guest. I'm not gonna spoil too much.
Okay.
But yeah, I refer to my new guest who I have coming forward. I refer to him or her as the Ark of the Covenant.
Okay, that's pretty uh
Yeah, that's pretty big.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. We'll be waiting
Um,
for that one, John.
yeah. So,
So let's move along, and I feel like I've been a
yeah.
distraction here, but
No, no, it's
um
fine. You're
so we
plugging
moved
me.
from my generation of MK Ultra. I was born in 1956, so I probably had it around 1960, 62. And I remember very rudimentary, like waterboarding and very rudimentary torture,
Yes.
for to split. And that
Yes.
was, were we the first phase or second or third? If say it was 1960 and I was four,
That would have made you a generation 3.
So it was
Um,
very rudimentary, very torturous. A lot of
yes.
I know you experienced the rape and sexual abuse too to split, but
Not to
yours
split. That did happen to an alter of mine who was back in your era. Um, the splitting done to me was a completely new method. And so I was just beginning to talk about
okay.
this.
So then we've gone from what I went through in generation three to what you're explaining now as generation 10 of MK Ultra.
Yes.
And how many
Yes.
years difference? We're talking, say, 10? No, more than that,
Uh,
30. If I was
50.
ni- if I was experiencing
Oh
MK
no,
Ultra,
not quite 50.
no,
Um,
in 19,
47. If you started in 1960, then, and I started in 2007, that's 47 years, right?
okay, just to give people a perspective on MK Ultra. So, and now John's explaining what's going on now. They're still taking children, still abducting, still splitting, but this is the new method. So go ahead,
Yes. Now,
John.
what happened first to me with the kids was a replacement of the blood. This truck that had picked us up, we had been portaled into the back of it, or at least I had been portaled into the back of it, and the two other kids from around the town picked up after me, were portaled into the back of it. Uh, were driven to Cheyenne Mountain Complex, and were essentially, we were offloaded out of this truck and kind of frog marched down some stairs, a whole bunch of stairs actually, into the what was it looked like a very large hospital room, or a hospital ward type of thing, like you would see, trying to like a hospital tent in a war. That's the best way to put it.
And this is 2007 at Cheyenne Mountain.
Yes.
Okay.
And there's all these cots laid out for us, and we're kind of frog marched over and laid out on these cots and told to be still. They weren't, they were very rough. They weren't beating us up or anything, but they were quite forceful. And there's all these nurses milling about, and all these nurses look pretty much exactly the same as like nurses from like the 1950s. They had like the mini skirts and the little hats and everything. It's funny. Um, and next to each of these cots is a dialysis machine.
Hmm.
They put one needle into the carotid and another into the jugular. And out of one, they pump all your blood into this dialysis machine, and it gets replaced with a translucent pink fluid. And I had thought that they were skimming off most of the blood, but then I actually spoke to uh, a hematologist about this, and she said no, if your blood was skimmed, it wouldn't come back pink and everything. That's not how that works. And so I was like, oh, okay. Um, and so I delved deeper into some memories of things I had seen around this, and uh, I asked a few other people, and I've managed to compile what I think is a reasonably complete picture, which is that they were pumping me full of drugs and nanotech. By the way, when all of my blood had been replaced with this stuff, I was you were very sick. You could not move for several days. You were completely phased out of reality, basically, in a fugue state. I have glimpses of recall of what happened in those couple of days, and I think I didn't get up off the bed at all. I remember, I tried to move once, and a soldier moved to restrain me, and one of the nurses came up and was like beating on him for trying to restrain me because then I might have been injured. And so that was basically what happened during that phase.
In-
And but then eventually, your body remakes all that blood and the nanites and the drugs distribute themselves within the body to their proper places. And so at that point, the actual programming began.
Okay.
And we were marched down more and more stairs. We were put on a surgical table first, and I'm sure that's when they put in the soul bite. Um, and you woke up in a regeneration tank. Now, what is a regeneration tank? A regeneration tank is a huge glass cylinder uh, that has a monitor connected to it. It's the bottom few feet is metal, and inside it there's all sorts of computation and such. And what it does is it reconstructs your body and your biology. And once the body and biology had been once the soul bite was in and we had been put through this regen tank, we came out, like new people basically, because it returns you to complete perfect health. Um,
So like a super soldier health?
no, super soldier health, well, I guess yes, but
Okay.
also
Just
you have to get augmentations and genetic
okay.
enhancements to become a proper super soldier.
Just like a
You're
superhuman then, or superhuman
yeah,
perfection. Okay.
yes.
Wow.
But
Okay.
so if only we could get these regeneration tanks here.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and so when we came out of this lab, we were assigned each a hospital room to begin with. It was basically like a hospital room. It was very similar to the one in Stranger Things, except that ours did have toilets and we did have a buzzer on the wall where we could ask for food or something if we needed it, and there was like a dumbwaiter that would deliver our food. From that point on, the group of children there, didn't see each other again until much, much later.
John, were you
And
surrounded by Navy or U.S. Air Force, or at that,
Air
back in
Force.
my day, it was Nazi, military. Is it the same for you in
There were
2007?
there were a few Nazis there, mostly Air Force and also mostly scientific personnel who did not. I don't think they were officially like military commissioned. I think these were people hired out from universities and such. I
Okay.
don't think, yeah, I
I'm
don't
just
think
trying to
this,
get the thread of who is still behind it. It's the same
yeah,
entities of military, Nazi, deep state.
a, essentially yes.
Okay.
And there were ETs there as well.
Okay. What type of ETs?
There were greys, there were inner Earth raptors, or as they're called raptors in a lot of UFO literature because of Jurassic Park. That's a pop culture term. Their actual name is Deinonychoids because they look like a dinosaur called a Deinonychus. I can tell you how to spell that. Dein.
I'm just, I was going to put gray reptilians, but you're giving me a
Oh,
fancier name.
no, I'm telling you what the inner Earth raptors look like.
Oh,
D E
okay.
I D E
Wait a
I
sec.
N
What?
D E
Right.
I N.
IN is in Nancy.
Yes. Ony
Okay.
Chus.
Chus. Hmm. be really curious to see what comes up.
Yeah, look at the images there.
Oh, okay.
They look like that, except they stood upright and they didn't have feathers. And those are an inner Earth species. There is a very similar but not quite the same species on Mars.
So in 2007 at Cheyenne Mountain, in this institutional setting, there was these creatures, ETs.
Yes, yes, and
Okay.
there were also grays there. There were also praying mantis ETs there. I did not see a single Draco in my time there.
Interesting.
Um, the reason for that they don't have many Draco around people, around humans, is that Draco have such a psychic output, or
Hmm.
their brain waves are at such a high level that it will literally kill a human who is in their presence unless they are a hybrid. Um,
That's funny when I put in Dracos, what they came up with. That's really funny. Little pigs and little goats and wow, that's not very helpful because we know what Dracos look like. But anyway, we'll go back to these guys. Okay, sorry.
yeah. I didn't see a single Draco there. Probably that means that these staff were not hybrids, on this base.
And what were these ETs doing there in your estimation?
Mostly, they were technicians, because this technology is all alien technology. And
Oh,
we kind of know how to use it, we don't really know how to repair it. It's a little beyond our comprehension, and also there are treaties in place that say we're only allowed a certain amount of control. So
okay.
that's
Okay.
why that's why you'll often hear from my lab testimonies about that there were humans doing the work and ETs cleaning up the messes, basically.
And the nurses and doctors and staff did not show any surprise. It was business as usual to be working with
Yeah,
ETs. Okay.
yeah. This was
Yeah.
their job. They had been doing this probably for decades.
Okay.
Um,
All right.
and so we were each given a hospital room. And by this point, we were drugged pretty much out of our minds so that we were in a fugue state. We could perform very basic functions, like we could go to the bathroom, we could probably dress ourselves, maybe. I'm not sure we could even dress ourselves, but we could go to the bathroom. We could state in a couple of words if we were hungry or something like that. And where was I? Oh, and
Um,
in each of these hospital rooms, there was a great big loudspeaker on the wall, and there was also a TV screen in the wall. And when you got in there, they would start playing different movies. I remember distinctly four movies that I was programmed with. Um, Sleeping Beauty, The Little Mermaid, The Wizard of Oz, and The Exorcist.
well, The Wizard of Oz was probably in my programming too.
Yeah,
I'm so that's
yeah,
that was a mainstay of MKUltra for some reason is The Wizard of Oz and those
yeah.
concepts. Is that correct?
You hear it almost universally in MKUltra
Yeah.
testimonies.
Yeah.
And you
We
hear a lot of the other old Disney movies as well.
yeah.
I'm one of only two people I know who has ever mentioned The Little Mermaid, and I'm one of only two people I know who has ever mentioned The Exorcist.
Oh,
But The Wizard of Oz and Sleeping Beauty are the two most common ones. And by the way, actually, The Exorcist is not the one that got the messed up altars. Sleeping Beauty is actually the source of the really scary ones. Um,
interesting.
each of these movies, what it does is they play it over and over again on a loop, and while you're in this fugue state, your mind kind of absorbs certain triggers from it because they play specific scenes over and over again. And into the room, on the loudspeaker, they are constantly pumping information. They are pumping not only the name of the altar they are trying to program, and so they would be playing, for instance, I have an altar named Heinrich Müller. Okay. Um, so during some point in this programming, they were pumping into the room, your name is Heinrich Müller, your name is Heinrich Müller, your name is Heinrich
Mm,
Müller. You are from such and such place, you are from such and such place, you are from such and such place. You speak such and such, you speak such and such, you speak such and such, right?
right.
Over and over and over again. And And into the Soul Bite, they've already, by the way, downloaded the language that they want this altar to speak. So when they finally trigger that altar up again, he will be come out speaking this language. They don't have to, you don't have to take lessons in whatever language they want you speaking in this altar. It's all so fast, easy, and clean that it's really amazing
Yeah,
technology.
it's nothing like the MK Ultra that, the first, second, third, fourth, whatever wave of victims went through. I'm actually astonished. It's like a blood transfusion in part.
Yeah,
I mean, that's not all of it, but that's the biggest part, right? Is the blood transfusion.
yeah, and the soul bite and all of this the integration of technology and the fact that they pretty much fully understand the human brain now.
Okay,
And
so go ahead.
yeah, and so they also uploaded into with specific alters, they can also upload different, skill sets, etc. So you don't have to take martial arts classes or things like that. Uh, And they would take you out of your room occasionally to put enhancements into the body as well. And
Okay.
the enhancements that went, these were genetic enhancements and also cybernetics to make you the super soldier or the super spy, etc., that they wanted you to be. And these implants are also connected to the Arasaka net and connected to the Stolbite, and so they can also be triggerable to only be turned on or usable in a certain altar when that altar is called forth, right?
Right.
And uh, now I can go into what each of these movies was used to program. Um,
I would be really interested in that. I'd be really interested if you want to go into it.
yeah, yeah,
Especially the
absolutely.
Wizard of Oz. I mean, all of them, but the Wizard of Oz is just so deeply ingrained in so much of us survivors.
Yeah. The Wizard of Oz, in my experience, I have pretty much been able to determine was used to program the various assassin altars. The honeypots, yes, there are male honeypots, absolutely, although I do also have female alters who are also, a couple of them are also honeypots. As, but not only honeypots, snipers, hunter-killer drones, as they're called, who will charge through a crowd of people, carving a swath through them until they reach the target.
Now, how
And
does the Wizard of Oz help you become an assassin?
well, because they chose it to. They picked these various these images are quite something. Um
We're probably both going to go into an altered state if I don't stop.
yeah. Um
Sorry. I
no,
always
it's
loved
fine.
this one. I mean, I was obsessed with this, and I know why
Yeah, me
now.
too.
My God,
Yeah.
like that scene with Glinda looking over poppies. Remember they put them to sleep? It's just like, oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
and the poppies, by the way, poppies are a reference to opium.
Yeah.
And so I have heard people say that they also had like drug mule altars programmed with this scene. I may have as well. I don't have any memories of any drug mule altars, but that certainly doesn't mean they exist. I have gotten glimpses. I've gotten like reasonably full memory from two altars. I've gotten glimpses of dozens of others. That is still, of course, nowhere near 2,197. So, I don't know what all of them do by any stretch of the imagination, but from what I remember, they used the Wizard of Oz to program assassins, of various kinds, and I have quite a few altars who are used in that capacity. Uh, and
Okay. We're both like kind of mesmerized. Um,
yeah, I'm not looking at the screen right now.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's go on and sort of if you're it's almost an hour. If we're going to get to James Rink, I would love to spend
Well,
an hour on
I
just the Wizard of Oz.
okay.
Um,
Well, I would like to at least partially explain the rest of these
or maybe we could
movies.
just do MK Ultra today.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
let's
I think James's situation is up on Facebook now, so I don't think
it
I'm
is. It
I don't
is.
I don't think I'm an authority to speak on it anymore.
Maybe I
Um,
just want to read that at the end of, his
yeah.
statement and we'll wind up with that.
All right. But so what the Wizard of Oz yeah, it programmed assassins. Which that was not the first one they did. The first one that they did was spies. And my spies were programmed with the Little Mermaid. And
Huh.
by the way, from this scenario, I actually remember uh, scenes that are not in the official public print of The Little Mermaid. I remember, for instance, the wedding scene in The Little Mermaid. You can look that up and maybe get some of this Wizard of Oz stuff off the screen. Um,
Okay. All right. See, I'm like falling into it. I'm like, oh, yeah, let me get
yeah.
out of here. All
Um,
righty.
look up the wedding scene. You probably shouldn't play it, but it's and this is of course the animated version. The live action version, of course, did not exist in 2007. Yeah, there's not that wedding. There's an earlier wedding in the movie that gets botched.
Okay.
Because the prince tries to marry the sea witch in disguise. I remember that scene being much longer, incidentally, and that's the MKUltra version I'm remembering. They cut out quite a bit of it.
Well, here's
Uh,
no, this isn't them. That's not them.
no,
That's
no, that's fan art. That's from a completely different movie.
here's the mermaid and the guy about
Yeah,
to consummate their love.
yeah. There's a scene also where the mermaid, transforms into a human,
Okay.
and that scene is also a major trigger for me. I used to sit and watch that scene just on repeat as a child because that was so mesmerizing, and I would like try and analyze it frame by frame.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that scene is what triggers one of my spy alters. I don't know his name, but a Nachtwaffen spy alter, and they will trigger him that when they want him to brought forward after they abduct me. If they want him in operation, they will broadcast that scene into my head, and that brings him forth. I'm pretty sure.
Is it safe to say that these movies were made by Disney to program children? For,
Yes.
okay.
And by the way, I'm hearing from a person, a Japanese friend who is probably a Japanese asset, that they have their own set of films that were used for this, which were basically the Japanese Disney equivalent called Studio Ghibli. We need to do an entire show about Japan. Uh,
Yeah, I know because it keeps coming up and we're like, what? Japan, Japan. We don't all have that knowledge. So, yeah, we
yeah.
should do one. So, Little
But
Mermaid, go ahead.
yeah, Little Mermaid is for spy alters, or at least it was in my case. Uh, and my spy alters are the most numerous, at least of the ones I've gotten glimpses of memory from. Um, Probably about half of the alters that I've gotten some glimpse of are spies, of some variety or another. And this is all non-sex spies, although, I mean, seduction does play a role in spying, like we
Hmm.
think of James Bond, but James Bond is not a honeypot, okay? James Bond is a spy who occasionally uses seduction as a tool. That's a different thing.
So,
Um,
even with all this advanced MKUltra, they're still using the Disney programming in it.
yeah, it's that
Hmm.
good, I guess.
Yeah, I was going to say it's that powerful. Images, sound, music,
Yeah,
emotion, love, all of that gets us on every level.
yeah, and it especially appeals to children.
Yes.
And it especially like it is good for they found even in your generation when they were doing The Wizard of Oz, a tiny portion of why they used Wizard of Oz, etc., is because they wanted a tiny level of enjoyment in it for the child because you know,
Well, that's sort of MK Ultra in a nutshell. Like they give you a little bit of goodness and a lot of terror, but
yeah,
they've got to get you with something. They've got to
yeah,
pull you,
exactly,
something that satisfies us or fulfills us, or whether it's food or, a movie or but then they'll come in with the other, which is sort of the essence of MK Ultra, is opposites to split the mind.
exactly.
So the children now getting abducted are going through what you're going through. Are they still just taking them off the streets like they did, going through America and picking them up
No,
in a
they
white van?
well, they're still picking them up in a truck. In my case, I wasn't picked up off the street. I was picked up
Right.
out of my bedroom via a portal. But they are still taking them in a truck to a base. So, it's potato potato, really. Uh, and so for my soldier altars is what they use the Exorcist for. And my soldier altars are the ones who I've only the most recently begun exploring, and I'm starting to realize they're probably actually the most numerous in number. They're just not the most numerous in the amount that I've gotten memory from as of yet. But their memories are coming to the forefront more and more, partly because I think they're more active, more in use these days.
Hmm.
Um, And so The Exorcist was what used soldier altars.
Okay, that's surprising.
Yeah.
That was a movie I couldn't even watch. I found that just horrifying. I think most kids felt that way. But you were forced
Yeah.
to watch it.
Yeah, I was. Although, I mean, in my drugged out state, I probably
Yeah,
didn't.
yeah.
It probably
Not
didn't have that much effect on me. And by the way, I don't. It's one of the movies on this list. It's the one that actually triggers me the least if I watch the regular version of it
okay.
because you know, I don't
Yeah.
know why. I guess, I somewhat have a soldiery personalities at times anyway, and also it's like I happen to really like horror movies.
Okay.
Um,
You've lived them too. You've lived 'em.
I guess
Um,
so.
yeah, I mean your
And
alters at least have lived
yeah,
some horror shows on different Mars and all kinds of different
yeah.
realities in the
And
universe. You've
and there's times when they take me when I am pretty sure that I am not in alter. And that it's just me doing whatever out there.
so
Just put And so the Exorcist made soldier altars, which and also it made certain desk jockey altars. Interestingly enough, I don't know how they got from point A to B with that, but they did.
yeah, yeah.
And so my altars who are like basically desk jockeys who like, you know, enter files into systems and
It's bizarre. The
yeah,
Exorcist to
and
make
things like that.
to
It's
create
funny.
secretaries. That's funny.
Yeah, it's hilarious, but you know,
Uh,
someone
so
has someone has to enter all of these files into some system or other, and they sure ain't gonna, go to the local call up the local ad agency and say we need a secretary,
wasn't there
come
a
down.
famous movie star you spoke about who was a great secretary? Was it Judy
Judy,
Garland?
yes,
Judy
it
Garland.
was,
Yeah.
who was
So
in The
she,
Wizard of Oz.
yeah,
Who
interesting.
was who was a psychic secretary, basically. She would sit in on briefings and then psychically upload all the information into the computer at Camp Hero. Um,
What percentage of Hollywood stars do you think are operating under MKUltra mind control or another form of mind control?
100%.
A list, B list, C list, all of them. If you enter Hollywood, I
Yes.
mean, huh,
Yes, and probably everyone on all of the staffs of these shows, and movies,
that's quite a
etc.
statement. 100%. I would have
Yes,
said
it is.
90. 90. But
Well,
there's
maybe the gal who cleans the dust out of the camera lens, or the guy
okay,
sweeping the floor, maybe those people aren't.
okay. And what
But
about the waitress that walks by? In the movie.
well,
Um,
in those people probably aren't, because those are usually people who they've, hired like off the street or whatever, the
Yeah,
extras.
we're talking about the stars, the co-stars, the leaders and all
Yeah,
the
but
Twilight and yeah.
and also the directors and the
Yeah.
the producers and all of those people who also appear in testimonies quite a lot.
So is there anything
Um,
else you want to say about the newest version and what's happening to those kids, or is there another aspect of it you haven't covered of the newest version of MK Ultra?
what strikes me about it is how clean and quick it is.
Hmm.
One thing that was really bad that they were part of the reason why they did research to get it beyond how it was done in your era was because so many kids were dying horrible deaths.
Yeah.
Um, or they were going catatonic and could not be used. In my generation, that basically doesn't happen. They can use pretty much any child grabbed from anywhere to do this with. And what used to take years on end now can be done in 6 months or less. And you have full 2,197 alters ready to go, operational, programmed with languages, skill sets, whatever they need, ready to be broadcast, ready to either be kept in the original body and called forth when needed, or ready to have the file transferred to another soul bite in another body that they want to use it for, activated, sent to wherever, and used.
What
In
about
6 months,
satanic ritual abuse? Is that still being used, or no? Don't have to do that anymore.
it's still happening. It is not
Yeah.
being used specifically as a programming method. There's a difference.
Okay.
Satanic
Gotcha.
ritual satanic ritual abuse. Trying to think of how to word this. I was going to say it has its own merit, but that is definitely not how I want people to.
Yeah, you don't want to say
It's,
that.
I don't want to say that. It has its own uses, predominantly calling forth of entities and so on into the body, and those
Demons.
can then. Yeah, well, I don't use the word demon because that's a very charged and religious word, but it's
Okay.
negative entities can be called forth to into the body using satanic ritual abuse, or sometimes the quote unquote gods of the elite, which are predominantly Baphomet and Moloch, um, are the two that the elites worship, or that half of the roughly 65% of them worship Moloch, the rest worship Baphomet, and those two factions are fighting each other in opposition. I should be clear. It's not like hardly anyone, if anyone, worships both. And those two entities are not, you know, really entities such at all. They're just very, very, very advanced extraterrestrials, um, who
Hmm.
have gotten power and authority within certain spheres, and who uh, are extremely depraved, although they don't see it even as being depraved because they view us as so far beneath them
Yeah.
that, calling for the blood of a human child to them is like asking that would be like if one of us asked for a few cockroaches. That's how far above us they think themselves to be, and so, they don't even view it as depraved or immoral.
I understand that concept.
Yeah,
Um, I want to say, wow, that sounds like it's a whole lot better, but it's not better in the sense they're creating more and more slaves faster and faster. Is that right?
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. But on the other hand, I would still take it over what had been done in the past.
Oh,
And by the way,
absolutely.
on the subject of SRA, the various SRA alters whom I have had, and who I actively suppress their memories. Sometimes when I get it, I actively work to suppress it.
Hmm. Okay.
Um, and those were the ones programmed with Sleeping Beauty. Um,
So I
eh,
I have the sense the Earth has been under MKUltra mind control since about 12,000 years ago.
about 14,000, yeah.
14. Okay. So
And
we're essentially.
there have been ETs doing it to their own kids, probably billions of years ago.
That's mind-boggling. I can't even wrap my head around that. If the billions of years ago there was this technique on Earth, or did it
Uh,
come from other planets? Well, the Anunnaki did come from other planets, so they brought it here. That was the
yes,
invasion
yes,
that we experienced when humans were downgraded and enslaved, essentially, and still
yeah,
are. And it's getting
yeah,
worse by the minute
yeah,
right now, in my opinion.
yeah. We
Sadly, I
ain't,
don't think.
we ain't in a golden age of light like everyone wants to pretend.
I don't think there's any white hats. I got to whisper that because so many people think there are, and I used to too. And then I was like, this sounds too much like a Superman comic. And when
Yeah,
anybody
exactly.
tells you, to trust the plan, it's mind control. They don't want you to do anything. They want you to sit back and so-called, get the popcorn. That's when I was like, there's something very wrong with this whole thing. Um, but anyway, maybe I'm sure we could talk about each aspect of this for an hour. And it's been an hour and 15. I don't have much more time, but I asked you a couple questions about white sands military base. I was happened to be writing about it, and I wanted to know, it's sort of arbitrary to this, but also, connected. All the in deep underground bases are sort of connected. What was your experience there? And it's in New Mexico. I'm writing about New Mexico, so it was like a personal
Oh,
question.
right.
And I
I
saw.
remember being there. I don't know which altar this was, but I remember bodyguarding a scientist who was working with a species. I call them the tall oranges. They look like tall grays, but they're a bright, like almost neon orange color. And they were developing a kind of like a new kind of scalar weapon thing at the White Sands base. And I know it was the White Sands base because I specifically remember being in a craft flying over a lot of the United States, and I trying to remember how I knew we had entered New Mexico. I'm not sure how I knew that or how I can recognize that now. I had this memory like years ago, but I remember flying over and over and seeing the white sands down below and seeing a couple of the silos and then seeing a portion of the ground split open and the craft lowered down into it and we were there and I remember bodyguarding this scientist. I wasn't really allowed to know much, but like I did see some schematics that were passed around, and in my research of when I that I did of this memory since, I have determined that it was scalar weapon technology being developed, some kind of scalar weapons.
So
That's my
it is, of course, a deep underground military base.
yes.
Did you
That's my
remember any?
oh,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Do you remember any waterways underneath
Waterways.
there, like it's channels or
Yeah,
canals or connected
yeah.
to any water? Okay, there was somebody
And I'm thinking, no. I remember incidentally an aqueduct in uh Dulce,
Oh,
which is also New Mexico.
oh yeah, I'm surrounded.
Yeah,
I was brought here under mind control for sure, but it was also White Sands was also the place of the first atomic bomb explosion.
yeah, I've
They
heard
they
that. Yeah,
tested it, and a lot of people downwind, got cancer. And I think that was
Mm.
1947. They detonated some sort of atomic bomb there, but it was the first ever.
That would have had to have been like 1942 then.
Maybe I know it was the 1940s, and
It was during the war when because we dropped a bomb at the end of the war. So okay.
strangely, like it's like a tourist attraction now. Like people go down to see the remnants of the bomb, and it's just like so freaking weird to me. But anyway, people are under mind control that they think, we gained so much with the atomic bomb, and of course we had to use it in Hiroshima because if we didn't, it'd be much worse. So to me, that's a form of mind control for sure.
Yeah,
Uh,
the only reason that we were so adamant about gaining Japan was because the Soviet Union was beating Japan before we did. So, and of course, we couldn't have, all these wretched commies running around in Japan. I'm
so
profiling.
yeah,
I'm profiling, not agreeing. But
yeah,
like,
yeah, I understand. Yeah, they wanted to wipe out that advance into Japan. It's
yeah.
funny. I had a person staying at my house. He was a Japanese young man. He was an intern. He was a physicist at Los Alamos Labs, and he was from Japan. And I was writing
Oh,
my book. I just go ahead.
Los Alamos, that's not a significant location at all.
Oh no, 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 nothing like that. That's right up the street too. But he was a physicist, an intern. He was like 20 something, a really nice kid. But I asked him, he was from Japan. And, I said, what do you think? This is the origin of the atomic bomb in Hiroshima, and Oppenheimer and all that. And he goes, well, they needed to do that because it saved a lot of people, or it saved. And it's like, he's seen the own horrors of Hiroshima, and his grandparents,
Yeah.
barely talk, but those people, apparently, if he's a representative, think it was a good idea. And I'm just like, I didn't know what to say. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
mind
I
boggling.
can't. It's hard to imagine as an American being that subjugated in mind,
Yes, that's what I
by
felt
an
it was.
occupying force,
Yeah.
which
Yeah,
is
that was
what
great. It was
which
great
is
you
what
guys dropped it. Yeah. I'm like, oh, okay.
which by the way, America is still occupying Japan. Japan has no military of its own, really. They have a self-defense force. They do not have a
Yeah.
navy, an army, or an air force. They do not have their leaders do not really have rights. And Japan is still chock full of American bases. So,
Mm.
th-
Um, so the last thing, at least I wanted to share, and you might have something else, was James Rink. If you don't know James Rink, he's sort of a leader in the secret space program revelation committee kind of thing. He has been on the forefront of revealing the secret space program. He's held conferences. He is a super soldier himself, and this is him. And he was shot recently by a weapon. He thinks it was a scalar weapon, and it's of interest to me because I'm shot a lot. There's a lot of targeted individuals. I'm not shot from above anymore. That was really brutal. They were shooting at me from satellites and all kinds of things, and that was absolutely brutal because no matter how many layers of protection I had, they could get through. And they stopped that. I don't know. I did write a letter to the governor of Maine, and I don't know. It stopped after that, but I have no idea if she had anything to do. But then I still get them from the ground up. But this was like a really serious attack on James Rink. It's Rink. I thought it was Ring.
it's
And this
Ring
is
on Facebook. That's
okay.
why. Yeah.
Yeah. And John, we happened to talk about it because John was about to do an interview with him when he got hit by this weapon and was hospitalized. And you said you thought he had surgery. I'm not sure if he had open heart surgery or not, but this was like a very serious hit because every
Yes.
day I'm inundated in my Facebook by targeted individuals, especially women. They're getting raped with electronic weapons. They're getting and it happens to me. They heat up my body. They do, we're getting hit
Yeah.
a lot, but this was one that um was put him into the hospital.
Yes.
I'm just going to read this. I mean, this is 2 minutes about James. That's weird. Just
Well, I can give a little bit of context to it, is that I'm pretty sure that this kind of technology is what killed Diana, Princess Diana.
you
Um,
said that.
yeah. I've been talking about I've started the leak a little bit on what I know about what was done to Diana because I do have a bit of an insider scoop on that particular front. I will not reveal my source because he or she is um quite isolated and is trying to remain that way, but I do have permission to share this that Diana was taken out by a heart attack gun. Uh
Not surprised because the crash didn't kill her. Um,
no.
and
Car crashes don't cause heart attacks, and especially not when you're able to get up and walk out of the car.
Yeah, and then there
Uh,
was the slow ride ambulance when it's a CIA or it's a deep state when the ambulance takes
yeah,
forever to get to you and they were letting her bleed out but ultimately they I mean it's possible they took her out with the gun, and you're saying that's absolutely what did happen.
yes, yes. My source was on the ground attempting to do a rescue, and there was actually a small battle between two. groups of
Wow.
assassins on the ground there, one attempting to rescue and the other doing the assassination work. And uh, yeah, that
Yeah, I have
I
some
I'm
inside information on that too, which is pretty shocking.
yeah.
But that
Well,
could be another whole video too. Um, this
yes,
is
it could.
just James Rink. What the hell happened to my? Oh, here it is.
We'll have to do a show about celebrities as well. Uh,
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened to my mouse. Where are you, mouse? Oh, it's way down here. Why is it down there? That's
I
weird.
have lists of dozens and dozens of celebrities that I remember from the programs that we can do a.
Okay, I'm
Looks
just
like
gonna
this ain't
go.
gonna cooperate.
I'm just gonna. It is, but let's just see if it's worth it. It's just like a little thing about how he got attacked. It's,
My family has just pulled in. I'm gonna run.
all right, bye, John. Thank you so much. I'm just gonna read what
Yeah,
John James said on Facebook. So thank
yeah,
you so much, and we'll get together again soon.
yeah. I might call you in a few minutes.
All
Just
right,
on my
let me
phone.
wind this up. Or you
Yeah,
want it
okay.
to be recorded, the will you call, or just private?
No, 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 no.
All
Just
right, give me
private.
5 minutes.
Yeah.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Okay, that looked like it was an AI. But it's on James's Super Soldier Talk YouTube, which has 83,000 subscribers. So I just wanted to read his last statement or most recent statement on Facebook. And he clarified what had happened to him. Let's just see if I can find it. And if I can't, I'm not going to spend too much time trying to find it, but it's on his Facebook page. And I am back. Let's see. Some reason I could not find it on his thread. I had it, I thought, saved. He said he did in this particular post that he made today. He said that it was not a heart attack. It was something else. And shoot, I can't find it. Uh, let me see. So I'm not going to, let me see. I could read his, yeah, James Hook is a meditation practitioner, researcher, author, super soldier in the secret space program. He understands the programming traumas explained in his online YouTube and later Rumble presence. Um, has helped awaken humanity to the secret activities of the covert government, uncovering topics such as brainwashing, trauma, my labs, covert harassment, which he has had to endure his entire life as a product of Project Surrogate and MKUltra, My Lab Super Soldier experimentation. His book Lone Wolf chronicles these projects. So I'm not sure. Um, Let me see if it comes up under posts because it was a post this morning. So I'm not sure why. I don't see it here. There was just it was a statement about what happened. He was okay. Yeah, I don't I saw it this morning and I actually had it bookmarked, but uh I'm not going to spend too much time. You can find it on his Facebook page, most likely. I just don't want to hold this up. And it is James Ring is his Facebook, and I'm sure you can find it. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to wind this up. Thank you for watching. I want to be more consistent. I usually have a different background, but this is the best I could come up with. I'm in New Mexico. I didn't really introduce myself. I am a shamanic healer. I'm a Reiki healer. I'm a remote viewer. I'm just, all the things that the secret space program values in there a lot of time in their abductee. I'm also a survivor of the secret space program. I'm a targeted individual. I do remote healings. I can do remote viewing for you. I can do shamanic healing remotely. I will see someone in person if I have a reference, somebody I know or I talk to you. But you can get a hold of me. I'll leave my information below, my email. I have a website. I'll leave that too, Radiant Earth Mother. And I'll put John's information below too. So I have a combination of knowing extreme trauma and extreme healing. I'm very connected to Mother Earth and the healing. It's what kept me alive, survived because of Mother Earth. And I make flower essence. I make herbs. So it's Mother Earth who has healed me, and I think continues to heal me. And I use a lot of the spirits of Mother Earth, the power animals and the tree spirits and the flower divas. And so it's why I'm alive today. Also, because I'm a Reiki practitioner and a shamanic healer. So thank you, everyone. I will put a lot of the information below. And thank you, John. And let's see if I can figure out without hurting anything, because I haven't done a video in a while. I've learned I should be consistent because everything's ready and it's working and I don't have to figure it out. So I hope I haven't forgotten anything. Lots of love to everyone and goodbye for now.